Hello and welcome to the Satluj TV podcast. My guest joining us once again today is a former president of the Sikh Youth of America, former president of one of the largest gurdwaras in California, and the founder of the Sikh Information Centre, the Organisation for Minorities of India, and the Sovereign Star Publishing Company. But he's also been a prolific author with published titles including Faces of Terror in India, Demons Within, Cultural Malware, and Kite Fights, amongst many others. Bhajan, Singh, Bhinder, welcome and thank you for joining us once again today.
Hi Scott, thank you. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh to everyone.
Now, Bhajan, today I want to look at disinformation, the tool of choice of the Indian government to undermine its political adversaries, minorities, and of course just ordinary people trying to seek justice. And it's something that we talk about a lot on our channel, as disinformation against particularly the Sikh community is everywhere. It's almost unavoidable across not just social media, but even the mainstream media. So I'd like, if I may, to do just a bit more of a deep dive into where this disinformation is coming from, how it's used and how prevalent and effective it is. So perhaps, Bhajan, you could talk to us, tell us how is this propaganda generated and who primarily is it coming from?
Well, Scott, we have seen the Indian state has used massive disinformation, even going back to the Indian independence. The Sikh ideologue Kapoor Singh, he said that as a DC during the partition, he received a circular addressed to all the district commissioners that not to trust the Sikhs. They are criminals and they are traitors, very derogatory, and to scatter them all over the place. This was to instill fear at the highest level from the government so early on when Sikhs decided to join India. Even after the attack on Darbar Sahib in 1984, the army put out a circular in its newsletter to all the army personnel. The newsletter was called Baat Sheet. It says that the Sikhs wearing kirpans are very dangerous, they are terrorists, and they must not be trusted with. So this disinformation is to instill fear, distrust, and mobilize those who hate the Sikhs or want to just conform to the state's designs to give them ammunitions in their hand. Hey, look what we have. But recently, an eye-opening investigation by the Washington Post, where they went to India and they investigated and put out their reports in early 1924. It was called that the how Modi silence and targets critics in USA. In there is eye-opening how in a paid organization based in Delhi on a 3-story building, run by a raw agent, Lieutenant Colonel Satyapati. In there, they create dossiers, attack pieces, misinformation, a mix of half-truths and some truths to create a conspiracy to paint a picture that the people in America who are critical of Modi, such as Congresswoman Jayapal, who is a very adamant supporter of minorities, Sikhs and Muslims and Christians. And USA, she was targeted. George Soros was targeted. That these are all the extensions of the ISI, extensions of China. So they put out these large dossiers, which are then amplified and circulated throughout the world through the millions of their trolls. Very sophisticated system they use, and they have used this system to target anyone in the United States. I myself was a target of it, and they put a 100-page report on me. In fact, the Washington Post says in this investigation that the template they put out on me that I've shared last week, and we'll talk about it a little bit, the Unending War, was the first template, the first masterpiece the raw agency designed to scare people away, to make people think that they're dealing with very dangerous people And they even targeted the United Commission on International Religious Freedom. Then it is backed by ISI, is backed by CIA, and this information is all created at the three-story building. They hired 12 contractors, independent contractors, to generate Google truths, half-truths, tie things together to make one very dangerous. One is a terrorist. Joy Soros works for the interests of foreign governments. Jayapala is following the orders of the ISI. Bhinder is a terrorist. He's organizing minorities in USA. So this creates a massive amount of distrust and fear, and it's targeted, according to the Washington Post. The main target in all this is those people who the raw agency, the Indian government feel are really a threat to the Modi government. In my case, I put out a lot of stuff on the RSS. I sponsored articles and research that I put researchers on, and it's a 60-page article on Tulsi Gabbard that shows that Tulsi Gabbard, who wants to be the United States president, she in fact, at a very young age, was recruited by RSS as a member of RSS. We took this information to Hawaii, to her constituents. When they found out the truth fact, she was defeated. She's out of business. So that's why even Bernie Sanders took her off the progressive ticket, because the information was so powerful. But if you look at the unending report, they does mention this, that this whole setup of Bhinder, of me, and minorities of India, they have done and destroyed the career of Tulsi Gabbard. So how do they retaliate against this activism, criticism of India, where you actually hitting the Indian state right in their belly? And they come out with this massive dossiers. And that's what the Washington Post has actually, at that time when when the 100-page report came out on me, I had no idea who was behind it. But the Washington Post has confirmed that is the work of the raw agency, where the building is, how many people operated, and how they are putting this information to the millions of hardcore Hindutva workers in the United States to really shut down operations like mine.
And Bhajan, it's interesting because clearly that is a very sophisticated and very targeted piece of disinformation. It was a targeted attack against you personally. And it's very interesting how this has evolved over even the decades. Of course, you referred to 1984, but of course what followed 1984 in the 80s and the 90s, there was the uprising of the Sikhs in the Punjab. And of course, that was pre-internet days. There was the Indian media that existed, and no doubt they closed down. We certainly know in 1984, they ensured that as many of the global press could not get access to the truth. So in its early evolution, there was already an operation underway to ensure that the truth never came out, and that in fact an official narrative, the narrative of course of the Indian government, was the only narrative that was allowed. But then came the internet, and then came mass media, and of course we now live in a very different age. And this whole process has evolved into an extraordinarily sophisticated and complex machine of disinformation. And it does appear that it has been extremely well coordinated by the Indian government and, of course, the Indian intelligence services into this very effective machine. And I believe that one of the disinformation organisations in the European Union, the EU Disinfo Lab, they took a very close look at this. Now, normally they looked at disinformation against the European Union, but as part of their ordinary investigations into global disinformation, they uncovered a massive network of Indian disinformation capabilities. Of course, we talk about the Hindutva IT cells. But I understand that they identified groups, actual companies, groups, and of course major media outlets. Is this something that you could perhaps talk about and elaborate on, this specific report that the EU Disinfo Lab released?
While the Washington Post pinpointed the operation of raw agency in its very extensive report, well-researched report, and it gives the name of the operation. The Lieutenant Colonel Satyapati was in charge of this disinformation, directly connected to the Modi government itself. But actually, this, as you said, this has evolved. I still remember in 1984, May 1st, just I think approximately May 1st, 1984, just literally days to the end of May, I would say, just literally days before the attack on the Darbar Sahib, they call Operation Blue Star. At that time, we had a Cold War situation going on. Russia was very powerful. The non-aligned nations, they had a lot of power in the world, and the men were eyeball to eyeball. They were fighting every place. And India was, of course, aligned with the Russians and the Eastern Bloc. What India would do, they would put out the news to Pravda News and then disseminate to Eastern Germany and then to other various organizations. And I still remember the headlines that Sant Bhindranwale, while being in the Darbar Sahib, has a direct telephone line, landline, to Langley, Virginia CIA, and they're operating that. This was the headlines. What a massive fear that created in the rest of India when people heard such news. It has evolved from those kind of disinformation. Now we go back to the European Chronicles here. The European Chronicle is a non-profit organization. They want to safeguard Europe. They want to protect Europe from disinformation. So they are equal opportunity organization that wants to protect the integrity of humanity. Like Julian Assange, he's my hero. He put out information out there, he paid the price, and everybody has to pay a very heavy price when they want to fight like the Indian state or other such a rogue institution. So in the case of the Indian Chronicle, the European Disinfo Lab has come up with a 15-year, they discovered a 15-year operation by the Indian government, Indian agency from 2005 till the discovery in 2020, and it's still going on in some for other. So what this operation is, European Chronicles has discovered, is that a Srivastava group is Ankit, is the guy who claims to be a CEO and run the operation. What the European Chronicles here, as an eye-opening report has said, they have created fake NGOs. They have created fake think tanks. Directly, what the Washington Post today has showed us is a war operation. So now you can, at that time there wasn't enough information, but the European Chronicles did say that it operates under the shadow of the Indian intelligence. But the Washington Post confirmed that such operations at the Chronicles are directly controlled by the Indian state. So they are fake think tanks. They had so many websites. They have infiltrated United Nations. They have infiltrated members of the European Parliament. There are 750 fake media outlets. They have mainstream Indian media under the control. And most importantly, they have a distribution hub of this fake news, targeted news, which is all distributed through the ANI news agency, which is the head of the serpent, as I want to mention, where all these things are coming out from. So you can see that how this European Chronicles, the system works, how it's controlled, how it's managed, and fake actors, fake newspaper reporters, they would send a reporter to an event, and then to make it look as though the event is being covered for legitimately, but everything is manufactured at the Srivastava group, a lab group, the Disinfo group in India. And then whatever they want to do, they hit out. Their targets are minorities. They want to destroy their adversaries, including countries which they have a problem with, Pakistan, China, and that is understandable. But with the Sikhs, we are also part of these operations as we were discussed. And these chronicles, you can see how they have targeted the farmers' agitation. They have targeted the Kisan Morcha. They have targeted any operations that the Sikhs are agitating on. Their goal is to use all these European chronicles outlets and put massive disinformation, spreading lies. Kisan Morcha is supported by China. Kisan Morcha is an extension of the Pakistan's endeavor into India. Kisan Morcha, they put fake news, fake newspaper reports and pictures that not too many people are actually protesting with the Kisans. There are a handful of people. And these massive dossiers are spread and misinformation is put out using fake medias like the Indian press, ANI. And then they have a 4 News agency, which is a lab where they develop this really is a developed news and targeted towards destroying minorities, creating discount between minorities. Sikhs are the main targets in these operations.
And I understand the methodology is very clever in many ways because, of course, yes, you talk about the ANI, the largest media group in India. They generate a lot of this content. They have, I gather, a whole team of people writing this content, and then they, of course, send this out under their own banner, and it's picked up by other news aggregators like Yahoo and other people. But of course, it's then handed down to, and on this channel, even today, in our Perspective show, we talked about Major Arya, one of the mouthpieces of Hindutva. These people pick up these news items, these news articles, and take them as absolute truth. But of course, then the audience, whoever that may be, and that may be within India, but of course that may be outside of India, they, because it's being disseminated, it's being spread by people that they maybe believe, they respect, these people are quite high profile, they believe every word. So it's very clear the methodology is very clever. And of course, I imagine it has been evolved over many years into a very, very effective machine.
Yes, it is. It's very effective, and it continues unabated even today. We have recently seen the efforts by our Assemblywoman, Dr. Jasmeet Vance, and how she's tried. Well, going back a little bit, actually, because of all this disinformation and all these intimidations to silence the critics. Actually, the Indian operations are even more sophisticated than the Chinese and the Russians, the Iranians. And that's why the Transnational Repression Act came about by the US Congress. So you can see that even Jasmeet Vance, who wanted to continue to protect the people like me and others, Sikhs, who want to be critical of the Indian government without being fear of being murdered, without being intimidated, freedom of our right to speak. So you can see that the Transnational Repression Act is a direct result of such findings as the Chronicles, the Disinfo Lab, and I'm pretty sure it's other nations are doing, rogue nations are doing the same thing. So in our case, how sophisticated this is, and how it directly impacts closer to home. We have a case study here that would explain how this method works. For example, here is a distortion by ANI News when the Sikhs were celebrating the 6th century, the foundations of the first Sikh Gurdwara in USA in Stockton. The ANI, this whole Disinfo Lab and the Chronicle operations is seen, how they come into play, how this theory comes into practice. So we can see here a reporter by the name of Robin Singh. You can see on his Facebook profile that he still associates himself with ANI News. So In April 14, 2012, we were planning to celebrate the 6th century foundings of the Gadar movement here by the Gadari Babas, also the foundings of the Sikh Gurdwara in Stockton. I was tasked with archiving all the records of the Gurdwara. I was tasked with, I was a Centennial Committee coordinating secretary. So it was a very important profile and responsibility for me, along with many others, including Mr. Manjit Uppal and others who participated in this event. Many of us were there together. So when we wanted to, ahead of the November celebrations, which was going to be 100 years, we wanted to start having activities that will help us put these ideas of the founding fathers of the Sikhs so that Sikhs can get a sense of freedom and they can use this information. They can get mobilized to get a nation for themselves. They can learn from the forefathers how they operated as Sikhs to get freedom from the British. So there was a Nagar Kirtan here, and there was a meeting that happened. And at the meeting, at the Nagar Kirtan, at these large gatherings on Vaisakhi, pre the actual celebrations of November 12 in 2012, November 2012, we had a host of activities that was going to go on. So we had this reporter come from ANI News, reporting, introducing himself as ANI News. He came and he talked to many people. He shot video. He interviewed people. He was showed records of the Stockton Gurdwara, how the Gurdwara was founded, what the Sikh traditions are. And he himself wears a turban, and I'm pretty sure he was brought to the Gurdwara, chauffeured together by some Sikh, or he knows some families. So he knows the history of the Sikhs. But he put out an article on April 14, 2012 in ANI News, which is the extension of the Srivastava Group, which is extension of the kind of opaque Indian intelligence operations, you might say. So he puts out an article about the Vaisakhi and how we plan to celebrate the 100 years of Sikhs here. And then he completely rewrote the history of the Gurdwara, and he said that Gadri Baba Mangu Ram Mungowalia established the Gurdwara in 1912. This is not a true statement. The original records, and everyone in the Sikh community is well aware that the people responsible for setting up the Gurdwara is Baba Jwala Singh, Baba Vasakha Singh, Baba Santosh Singh, Professor Teja Singh. These are Sikhs. And Mangu Ram Mungalia is R. Tarmi, who declared himself a non-Sikh and wanted to start a separate religion at the height of the fight between the British and India. So we have a person who doesn't want to adhere and doesn't believe in the Sikh religion. He was here in America though, but he wasn't anywhere near the foundings of the Stockton Gurdwara. So you can see when we are trying to build our own narrative, we are trying to build our own history, which has already been tarnished by the Indian state. The Gadari Babas were leftists, they were useless, they were not Sikhs. So we are trying to build our narrative, and in comes the Indian government's operation through the ANI, which I'm not saying. This is Chronicles is saying they hire actors, they put up real stories, and then they manufacture the true intent of the fabrication at the Srivastava lab, and which is in New Delhi, and put out fake information throughout the world. So the immediate reaction we had here was shock. And how could we put out such a fake story? In the article, he further degraded Vaisakhi as a harvest festival. ANI News says that kids who were playing Gatka were using wooden sticks, wooden swords to stimulate the Karpans. Nobody does that. Totally misinformed. They call the Gatka players acrobats who perform stunts. Very derogatory article throughout, but heavily emphasizing that the founder of the Gurdwara was Mangu Ram Monglia. So what this did was all those Tarmeens and other people who have distanced themselves from the Sikh religion, like the Guru Ravidas Sabha. They have some variance in how they want to conduct their ideas of the Guru Granth Sahib, which we respect. But everybody came. It became a caste issue, that this is a low-caste person who has been deprived of his history and whatnot. We were approached to replace the founding fathers' pictures in the museum with Munguram Mongolia. It was with great difficulty that we show the records, that if that was true, we would have loved to acknowledge that. But the damage was done. You can see how serious the implications and how targeted the intentions of reporters are. Ravinder Robin Singh was approached by email by the Centennial Committee, by the Mr. Manjeet Singh Uppal. He did not answer any of the emails. We asked them to retract the story. They never retracted the story. ANI never issued apology, and the story still stands. And that it just went away just as that. So you can see the extent of misinformation that was put out by these chronicles and Disinfo Lab through their actors to the main disinformation network, which is called the ANI News. And you can see that this was intentional, and because if you look at this slide right here, on the left side, you have the founding documents of the day the constitution of the Gurdwara was signed, the signatures of Teja Singh. On the right, you can see the minutes that we archived. I was personally in charge of archiving every aspect of the records, and we got this information. You can find it. I'll share the PDF with you on the Sikh Centennial Journal. It's all there for everybody to see. So how could ANI News, how could Robin miss all these things, which he saw personally? And then the only sound conclusion, if you look in the middle of these two slides, between the 17-member first meeting and the founding documents, this is how the Srivastava group works. They put out fake informations and they put out fake news, and then it's spread through ANI News, and it's all fabricated stories to create massive disinformation, just like they say, Pindramwale had a landline with CIA Langley before the attack. So this is very important to know how this operation works. And this is not the only time ANI has attacked the Sikhs.
Bhajan, if I may just jump in there, because I find this very interesting, because even I noticed this year for Vaisakhi that all the Sikh organisations on social media were at great pains to point out to the larger mainstream media outlets what Vaisakhi actually meant. And of course, it was often reported that it was Harvest Festival, and all the Sikh organisations were at great pains to point out this is not our Harvest Festival, this is a celebration of many things, but not least the establishment of the Khalsa by the 10th Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And I thought, that's quite a strange reason, quite a strange press release to put out, because why would anybody think otherwise? But clearly this explains why I saw across social media this very strong initiative from the community to explain. And I think this highlights very clearly how very dangerous low-level disinformation is, because, of course, there are lots of media outlets who are innocent. They don't understand a lot of this misinformation. They don't realise that they are spreading misinformation because they don't know the truth. They just believe what they read. And, of course, even outlets like the BBC had to be instructed, this is not our Harvest Festival. This is the celebration of the establishment of the Khalsa, and so on. So, yeah, I think even I, as an external observer, noticed how this disinformation can be so effective, even at a very low, very subtle level. So, but yes, Bhajan, I think you're about to move on to other examples, and I would like to ask you, because of course a lot of these examples we've seen it very to a very large extent here in the West. This misinformation has been spread relative to so many different areas, but of course India, of course, is very keen to ensure that its own population, its very large population, are fed only one narrative. And of course they try very hard to turn particularly the Hindu population, but not even just the Hindus, the Muslims and other communities, against the Sikh community. So perhaps, Bhajan, you could give us some examples of how misinformation has been very specifically directed against the Sikh community in India. And one immediately springs to mind, of course, is the farmers' protest, amongst many other things. Two farmers' protests, 2020 and 2021, and of course this year's farmers' protest. Perhaps you could elaborate how misinformation proved to be so dangerous in those two protests.
Well, one clear example, the Kartarpur corridor, actually is one of the most unifying force for the whole region. It transcends animosity, divisions of religion, ideologies, and unify that there is the possibility of love. And Guru Nanak is one example where people were in a playful battle, trying to say, he's more mine than yours. That's a good thing when you love and someone and say, he's nearer to me, he is dearer to me. That is a positive sign of a love battle. So the Kartarpur corridor, at a very critical geopolitical times right now, is seen as going back to the times when the Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and Christians, they lived side by side together. And invaders and the Pahadi Rajas, the Rajputs, they were conquerors, they want to conquer, but the people below, they were all working together, they were sharing bread together, and the Kartarpur corridor is very important. So the Indian government see this as a black eye that we've been for years telling that Pakistan is an enemy of the Sikhs. And I'm not saying Pakistan is completely pristine and crystal clear. It has its own issues, but I want to focus, and it's not completely free where Sikhs are persecuted, other minorities are persecuted, but we are focusing on disinformation. And this is one place earlier where the founding fathers' history in Stockton was totally devastated, destroyed. And the same reporter here is putting out news that the material used to create the corridor Kartarpur Gurdwara was very poor, of quality. A storm came and knocked everything off. And this is devastating news. Whatever hope that was built by the Kartarpur Corridor Initiative, it disappeared and brought back to the lines of enmity. These Pakistanis are not truthful. The Imran Khan government cannot be trusted. They have cheated the Sikhs. They have cheated India. They are trying to misuse us. They're using poor materials, how cheap they are. And Sikh Siyasat went in, and I put the link there. They did a lengthy investigation into this and came up that this Gumbad doesn't belong to Kartarpur. It's a totally different story. They were being taken down for repairs to improve the Gurdwara, but this information is tweeted by responsible journalists as in a form of a very divisive news, and just like the intent of the founding fathers' misinformation to create discord among minorities. Here's another example, and these are only few examples. We need to dwell deep into people and organizations like this. What their ties? Who are they? Why are they allowed to come at important organizations? I have come to know that Robin Singh was also at a very important meeting in the East Coast, where he was sitting with in a private meeting and discussing in early 2019, we're discussing what are the important measures and input that Sikhs want to give to the Prime Minister of Imran Khan when he opened the corridor. It was early 2019. How these people find their way into this meeting, only God knows. So you can see, as we are discussing misinformation and disinformation, this thing is so serious that it can end up countries going to war. It can get up organizations fighting each other. It can get individuals killed, targeted. There's no end to the mayhem. We have seen how disinformation was conducted by Colin Powell so they could attack Iraq. That's the weapons of mass destruction. And we will talk more about the impact of this personally on threats and people's life, Scott.
Yeah, and I do notice in a lot of this misinformation, there is quite often there's a common theme, particularly when it's sourced from the Indian right wing, which one has to assume is coming from the Indian government indirectly, is that there is a very targeted campaign against the Khalistan movement. And certainly about the Kartarpur corridor, it was mentioned that certainly Pakistan are trying to promote the Khalistan movement. The misinformation was saying that they're potentially sending terrorists down the corridor to help support the pro-Khalistan movement, and it potentially could have a positive impact on the Khalistan sentiment across India. But of course, I mentioned the farmers' protests, and once again, right-wing propaganda that was spread around social media was all about, it's been infiltrated by Khalistanis. So again, there is this common theme about Khalistan, and they see the Khalistan movement as this feared monster of India. Now, my spin on this is, if the Khalistan movement was ineffective, if it was no threat to India, they wouldn't even bother. Would you see it almost as a compliment that in fact they are so terrified of the Khalistan movement that they are generating huge amounts of misinformation specifically targeted to try to destroy the Khalistan movement?
I absolutely agree with you. In fact, I think the referendum is sending shivers down their spine, and they are fighting tooth and nail to find disinformation, to create disinformation, attacking their own embassies, tearing down Gandhi statues. Then when they fail at that, they, like Mr. Pannu has said, that the foot soldiers, they are criminals who were hired by the Indian state to kill people like Hardeep Nijjar. But Mr. Pannu has clearly said that the kingpin is Modi himself. And this is where the disinformation, you can see clearly how this whole system worked together. The Chronicles, the Disinfo Lab, creating misinformation, inciting people to accept. You can hire criminals to kill someone. I could be killed by some criminal, but you have to paint the person as a very villain so people accept, Bhindranwale was a true terrorist, he was a Frankenstein, he deserved that. To dehumanize, to distort the image of Khalistan, they are doing all these things. And when they fail, they go and hit you with assassination. I would say the world has waken up. All these European chronicles. Now what the Sikhs were facing, the whole world is facing. The implications of this massive fake news, fake propaganda, hatred. I mean, these people, the Indian state, this is a Brahmin-oriented mind through the chronicles, through Raw. I think they themselves are enough to destroy the world without the nuclear weapons getting involved. So they are more dangerous even than the nuclear weapons, I would say. There's ideas of stealing people's identity. Just recently, RSS yesterday said caste is good for India. So they want to steal every aspect of your identity, and they want to steal the Khalistan narrative. Khalistan is very important for the Sikhs. Although Sikhs themselves, Sikhi is international, Sikhi is global, but we need to be in charge of our command centers, which are in the Akal Takht. So I want to point out along with the threats that Mr. Pannu faced, threats by other prominent Sikhs are facing, massive disinformations are put out on me, even more than the 100-page Unending War article. They put out more information on me that introducing those who want to break India and how I'm trying to put weapons in the hands of activists here and involved in drugs. I'm terrorist. And they created so much fear in the Swaraj magazine, and you can still Google this article. There were 3 death threats because the subject of the article was me and another gentleman, Peter Friedrich, who writes a lot on the RSS and Indian state. They straight out say that time for the Mossad-style operation to eliminate these elements. So they're calling for my death in the way the Mossad kills people using any means. And then they say that we must be, to be less than lethal, that they need to take lethal action against me. So this is very, very serious development. And this is how our Khalistan network, our Khalistani leaders, the referendum, whether you're asking for Khalistan in India or in Australia or New Zealand or anywhere, they will put out local massive propaganda against you, local base. So there you are your businesses, they put this information out to where you do business. My articles has put out, I'm in insurance business. They has given this article to all the people I deal with. This guy is dangerous. Thank God this is America and you have some legal rights. Otherwise, I would have been destroyed long time ago. And all my books, my articles, and one thing that has helped us to change our image. When I was involved in writing the Faces of Terror in India, we put out 5 flag incidents, including smuggling of weapons from Russia by Indian and KGB intelligence, planting them in Punjab so they can just simply scare everybody and pass TATA, Terrorist and Disruptive Act. So you can see how the intended purpose of this anti-Khalistan, anti-Sikh, it is all to create massive fear. And I agree with you, it is counterproductive now. People are realizing, they are waking up to the dangers of Hindutva. They are waking up to these massive chronicles, and they are reading these death threats being put out simply for writing books. Simply, I've been writing books, so I was involved in militancy. I was very proud of that, a very proud chapter. We have to fight the Indian state with the weapons they use. They were using weapons against that time. We were fighting with weapons. Now a weapon, amongst many others, is pen, paper. And if you do that, then they attack you in a very different manner. They attack you physically to eliminate you then. Now they try to get you killed. They try to tarnish your image and destroy your whole idea of existence.
Bhajan, one very final quick question. And you referred to it in many ways. Do you think the Khalistan movement is winning the misinformation war?
Well, I was very intently listening and following up to the last warning given by Sarah Adams, how Sikhs are being eliminated, how they paid money to kill people like Happy, PhD Happy. He was eliminated, young guy, brilliant guy. Then they went after Paramjit Singh Panjwar, who was eliminated. And they are going other people. We don't know how many people they intend to kill and have killed. Lately, I've been hearing rumors that Lakhbir Singh Rote could have been poisoned in the hospital. These are all, earlier we had the same information about Khanda. It started as rumors, but later it became true that the gentleman was poisoned. So the Khalistan movement is going to win because they are realizing that they are trying to eliminate us in a very, very different manner. You can see how the Modi government is saying, "Khuske marenge." But that's a lie. Modi did not khuske marenge. He hired criminals. He paid them money to kill people who were not active in the militancy. They were there for 35 years. They were doing activity, but there is really no battle going on. And the battle has been replaced by the referendum. The battle has been replaced. That means we can always pick up our sword anytime. The Guru has given us that dignity and honor and the right. And today, if the Sikhs were to pick up the sword, as Mahatma Gandhi at one time said, if India cheats the Sikhs, they have the right to pick up the sword. Today, if we pick up the sword, the world will support us, right? Because they've seen the atrocities of the Indian state. They are killing innocent people, sitting and doing their work and not bothering the Indian government, but still carrying on the battle for Khalistan in many ways. And they have resorted to hiring criminals. And there are many criminals. They come in. A criminal can come in many forms. In the case of Hardeep Nijjar, they came in the form of the 3 or 4 criminals who has the name Singh, or they could be from Punjab, but they have a criminal mind. We have this disease of criminality and greed for money. This transcends every aspect of humanity. The Khalistan movement is definitely winning. Look at Satluj News TV. How much you are discussing this topic. How serious level your discussion has taken the form. We have basically eliminated the Gandhi propaganda, which was a powerful tool of the Indian state. I myself have took down about 9 or 10 statues, and I filed a lawsuit in Malawi, which we won, that you cannot put a statue of Gandhi in Malawi. So this is all part of the Khalistan movement to take away the weapon of the Indian propaganda, replace it with a Sikh idea, Khalistan idea. We just had a lot of activity going on in Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu. People want to come and learn and join the Sikh family. Joining the Sikh family is a way laying the foundation stones and making those stones even more firmer and more stronger for Khalistan. I believe the geopolitical situation today, if we are not getting Khalistan, if we are not inching towards Khalistan, it is not because the world doesn't want to see us, the world doesn't want to help us. We ourselves have put handcuffs on ourselves, and we don't want to free those chains. I remember the word of Adivasi Sikh, Janelle Kaur. She just sent me the other day. She said, अगर जिद जितने की है तो हारने का सवाल ही नहीं है. She said, if the desire is to win, then the issue of losing is not even in the question. I believe the Sikh youth, our movement, the referendum movement, other movements going on, political movement going on, our young Sikhs coming into the political field. I am at the height of optimism. The world is open with a lot of opportunities, and we will grab it. We will not let it go this time.
Indeed, and it's very evident that the Khalistan movement is winning the legal, the moral, and even the democratic argument. Unfortunately, we must leave it there, but we will, of course, be talking with Bhajan Singh Bhinder again soon to continue our discussions. Bhajan, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us once again.
Thank you for your seva. Thank you. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
And thank you for watching the Satluj TV podcast. We will see you next time.